Today I'm asking, what are your spiritual gifts? Sometimes people have said to me, I don't have any spiritual gifts, which tells me that they don't know themselves well enough. Sometimes people say, I don't know what my spiritual gifts are, which tells me they've been covered up. Something has happened where those gifts have been covered up. Sometimes people say, what are spiritual gifts? What do you mean by that? And why is that important? Some people may say, well, I come to church, and people have said this to me, I come to church to be fed. I come to church to feel better. I come to church to get something different from what I hear on the news. I come to church to have something positive in my life to carry me through the week. And those are all important reasons. But I want to explain to you why spiritual gifts are important. Spiritual gifts in the Bible are gifts given by the Holy Spirit, gifts given by God to assist the whole community, to assist the beloved community, this spiritual community, and to assist the wider community. Hi. Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while. Pardon me. Personal interaction there. So, if we are not living into our spiritual gifts, we are cutting ourselves short from spiritual transformation that wants to occur in our lives. Let me give an example. When I came to Unity the first time, I was hanging out in the back. I had been a pastor in the Church of the Nazarene, and I was there as a visitor, and I was wanting to be anonymous and kind of hide out. I wanted to hide in the back. I was always in leadership, and I wanted to kind of hide. Like nobody noticed me. But I walked into this church, and immediately people started loving me up and recognizing and celebrating who I was. I'm like, whoa. I'm like so used to being at a place where they just celebrate who I am. So it became harder to hide. Hesitantly, but eventually, I became a prayer chaplain at that church. And found, wow, I love praying with people. Like when I pray with people, it's not like I'm praying over them or for them. I'm praying with them, and I'm resonating with them, and I'm speaking the words that help me to believe the words I'm speaking. I'll say it again. You all may have lost me. I speak the words that help me to believe the words I'm speaking. That is, I'm speaking words of truth. I'm speaking words of wholeness and health. I'm not speaking the words of disease and disability. I'm speaking the truth of who they are in God, the wholeness that they are in God. I'm declaring it, and I'm feeling it. And they begin to resonate with it like a tuning fork. And their spirit knows the truth of it. And their spirit begins to respond to it. And I thought, wow. This is powerful stuff, being a prayer chaplain. I did it more and more. Some prayer chaplains were like, can we just do it 2 Sundays a month because I need other Sundays to sit back and soak and refresh? And sure, Me, I'm like, every Sunday, I'm on. Because exercising that spiritual gift was helping to transform me. Exercising that spiritual gift was giving me energy. Exercising that spiritual gift was aligning me even more with God. Exercising that spiritual gift was helping me to know more and more of who I am. If you want to experience transformation in your life, which is an important part of our mission here, it's important to live into your spiritual gifts. You can experiment and try different things, but it's important to live into that. And then people's lives are touched by it. When you practice a spiritual gift, you find yourself energized. You find yourself, wow, this feels right. This feels like what I'm here to do. It's something that brings more meaning to your life. And it not only helps you to get to know yourself better, but to connect with others better. Eventually, I started standing beside the senior minister at the end of the Sunday service. And when people would come up to the senior minister and say, I really have this need, I have something I need to have prayer for, Cindy, the minister, would just go, here's Tim. Tim will pray with you. And in that church, we had a prayer room right off of the foyer. And we'd go in there and we'd pray together, and boom, lives were changed. Lives were changed, transformed. Because I was willing to practice my spiritual gift. Sometimes I have seen people who have prepared gifts and they keep them and keep them and keep them and never give them. What good is a gift if you don't give it? Your spiritual gift, if you do not exercise it, will create spiritual atrophy, spiritual indigestion. There's good reasons to practice your spiritual gifts. Very good reasons. This is important stuff. And it's part of our philosophy. It's part of this whole integral ministry practice that we live into our spiritual gifts and practice them in a way that works and helps the whole beloved community. Not to just sit on it like some miser, not to keep our light hidden. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, don't hide your light under a bushel basket. Hey, let it shine, so that all people may see it and glorify your Father who is in heaven. You know? I'm just in the Spirit here. So if any of this bothers you, just take it up with Spirit. So, okay. Which is a good idea anyway, to hold me in prayer through the week so that I speak and deliver in the Spirit. So, unity is sometimes, the unity movement, is sometimes accused of spiritual narcissism. That is, let me just feel good. Fluff my aura, make me feel better so I can get out there and do the same thing I did last week. Rather than really engaging and getting filled up so that I can then share it with a wider world and connect it with a wider world. The world needs what we're experiencing here. The world needs transformation. The world needs alignment with God. The world needs to know that God is our source. I've never seen such a time in our world where that is more needed. We need to shine our light. This is not a time to hide. This is not a time to play small. This is a time to play big and put on our big boy or big girl pants and show our gifts. Show who we are. Be who we are. That quote, and those particular quotes, Howard Snyder, who wrote the book, The Problem of Wineskins, was quoting from David Maines. And David Maines is saying, the difference of a talent and a gift, spiritual gift, is are you dedicating it to service, dedicating it to God, dedicating it to spiritual sacred service? My father was an accountant. He was a CPA. He was a financial advisor. He was the accountant for the governor of the state of Kansas. He had huge accounts. He was a financial advisor, an investor, and counseled people on investments. He knew a lot about finances. Now, he did other things. He was also a person of compassion, which is another gift. He was a person of leadership and administration. Those are other gifts. But knowing how to work with finances and knowing how to practice generosity is a gift. every Saturday night, and this is back in the day before we had online giving. Back in the day, every Saturday night he'd be learning and studying his Sunday school lesson. Every Saturday night. He was a Sunday school teacher. And I don't mean a little Sunday school class. I mean a Sunday school class of about 120 to 150 people. It was a church of 800 people. And he'd be saying his Sunday school lesson, and he would have written out his week's tithe on a check. And he'd stick it there in his Bible, so it'd be with him, because he always took his Bible with him to church. And I asked him as a little boy, what is that? Why do you always write that and put it in your Bible? He said, it's important to me that I give every week. I don't want to just give, this is him. You do what Spirit tells you to do and what feels good to you. But he said, I don't want to just give once a month or once every 6 months, because the church has weekly needs. I want to give this. He's telling me this as a little boy. He's modeling this. He said, I want to give weekly so that I can support God's work, because what we do helps people, and I'm giving to God. I thought, whoa, I get it. That's a gift. I want to share with you from 1 Corinthians chapter 12. There's other places in the Christian scriptures, the New Testament, that speak about spiritual gifts. One is in Ephesians chapter 4. There's various places. But 1 Corinthians chapter 12, which again was referred to in the reading that Cindy read. And this is Paul writing. And let me give you just a little bit of background about Corinth. The church at Corinth had issues. They had fighting. They had dissension. They had people that thought they were better than others. They had people who had fallen into some very unhealthy practices. So Paul wrote these letters to them to help them to mature in their faith. I once asked my seminary church history professor, I said, I want to get back to the original primitive Christian church. He said, oh, really? Tell me what you think the primitive original Christian church was like. And I spoke in these very flowery terms. He said, Tim, do you realize that we wouldn't even have a New Testament if the church had not had lots of problems in it? That every book of the New Testament is addressing particular problems in the Christian church at that time? Gave me a whole new view. It's like, oh, if you got people, there can be some problems. So, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, starting at verse 7. Every believer has received a gift that manifests the Spirit's power and presence. It's about the Spirit's power and presence. It's about glorifying God. That gift is given for the good of the whole community. Whether you are online, blessing your local community, or blessing us in some way, we are all in this together. We're all in the same boat. The Spirit gives one person a word of wisdom. That is, someone may be really wise and experienced and have clarity about something and speak to us with clarity. But to the next person, the same Spirit gives a word of knowledge. I believe this, and from my study and experience, this not only means people who have studied a lot and have a lot of knowledge, but a word of knowledge is like knowing something that you could only know by Spirit. You could only know by God. Let me give an example of that. I realize I'm interrupting my Bible reading. Just stick with me, okay? So, for 7 years, I left that Unity Church. For 7 years, I left. I became a leader in the Catholic Church. I became a Benedictine. I I need to write this stuff. It's an adventure. And then I met Olga Lucia, my wife. How many people here have met Olga Lucia? Okay. She's a person of compassion, love, service. You know where I'm going. And she says exactly. There's no games. There's no cover-up. I know from moment to moment where I stand and what she thinks. I don't have to guess. I don't have to figure it out. You know, no manipulation. It's just straight. So here I had been away from Unity, and Olga Lucia would express these metaphysical truths, spiritual principles that she had come to understand. She had studied them from South America, and she studied them from Russia, where she lived for 10 years. And she would express these spiritual truths. I said to her, that's exactly what they teach in this place I used to go to called Unity. She's like, really? A church teaches this? I said, yeah. This place called Unity that I used to be very involved in. They teach this stuff. Sometime later, she'd bring up more spiritual principles and truth. I'd say, that sounds exactly like the church I used to be part of called Unity. This happened several times. One day when that happened, my wife said, whenever I bring up these spiritual truths that I've discovered, you tell me about this place called Unity, that teaches these kinds of things, that you used to be really involved there, that you really loved it, but you left there, you know, because of some things that were going on. And either you go back there and give it another chance, because things have probably changed by now. You either go back there and give it another chance, or shut up and never talk about it again. That's my wife. Like, all right. We go to Unity. We sit there as a couple. We're sitting towards the back. Again, trying to be anonymous. The church service has just started. We're sitting back there by ourselves. She turns to me. Now, mind you, I got to set this up. I had been a pastor in the Church of Nazarene for years and went through some very traumatic experiences and told myself and told others I would never be a pastor of a church again. Forget it. It's too dysfunctional. Don't need it in my life. It's too unhealthy, too painful. Not going to do it. Okay, need to set that up. So we're sitting in the back, because we were like back there, back in that section, but at Unity of Wichita. She turns to me and she says, you are going to be the pastor of this church. It still gives me chills. I'm like, what? I'm trying to be quiet because there's other people around. And I'm thinking, if anyone can hear this conversation, this is the most bizarre conversation they've ever heard. Are you crazy? I told you I'm not going to pastor a church. She said, I know you've said that, and you can say whatever you want. You cannot escape it. You will be the pastor of this church. I know it. I'm like, what is going on with her? Is this a hormonal thing? Why did we come here? That's a word of knowledge. She knew something at a deep level. She knew that she knew that she knew, and she stated it and she affirmed it. Well, she was right. I mean, eventually, I was so involved as a prayer chaplain and ministering with people. Reverend Cindy one day called me into the office and said, a lot of people here think you're the associate minister here. Would you like to be? I had to wrestle with that and work through some trauma and stuff and became the associate minister there. 4.5 months later, without my foreknowledge this was going to happen, she got up on the platform and announced her resignation. I was sitting right here, where you're sitting, Jazz, and I'm like, what do I do with that? I again had to work through that and work through, what do I do? What is Spirit calling me to do? What are my gifts? I had to work through a lot of stuff. I thought, I'm not even an ordained Unity minister. I'm an ordained Nazarene minister. But I put my name in the hat. And that church board, as I was covering on Sunday services, and that church board that had excellent candidates said, why are we looking at other candidates? Why are we talking with other candidates? We have the person we need right here. I became the pastor of that church. How did she know that? How did Olga Lucia know that? How did she have that word of knowledge? That's a spiritual gift. Another will receive the gift of faith by the same Spirit. The gift of faith is something like, it's going to cost $1 million to build and start a school, but let's do it. This happened 43, how many years has it been? 43 years or so ago that we started our Unity School here. It was a gift of faith. In 1 week, they raised $100,000. It wasn't long before they had $1 million. Gift of faith. And still another, gifts of healing. Gifts of healing. We've seen in the We Space group, gifts of healing and gifts of knowledge. We have We Space that meets on Wednesday nights at 6:30. That's on the Spirit Group link. Yes, Kelly? Yeah. One person is enabled by the Spirit to perform miracles, another to prophesy. That doesn't necessarily mean telling the future, but it does mean declaring a truth that can sometimes be countercultural. While another is enabled to distinguish those prophetic spirits. The next one speaks in various kinds of unknown languages, tongues, while another is able to interpret those languages. One Spirit works all these things in each of them individually as God sees fit. You have a spiritual gift. You've been given a gift. Have you opened it? Good. Are you sharing it? Good. You may wonder, well, what is my spiritual gift? What is it? Now, in your bulletin, there's a little list of possible, because this is not meant to be all-inclusive. There's a little list right in your bulletin. Those of you online, if you wish, let us know. We'll send this to you. There can be the gift of activism. You were talking about Mother Jones. There can be the gift of administration, of assisting or helping. The gift of caretaking, the gift of collaboration, gift of communication, the gift of facilitating growth and self-awareness. There's a lot of things here, but these are just possibilities. I'd love for you to take that with you, look it over. I want you to think about, what is it that energizes me? What is it where my joy meets a need in our spiritual community? Where my joy meets a need in the wider community. Spiritual gifts are where joy meets need. What is it that gives us joy to practice? What is it that gives us energy to practice? What is it that makes us come alive and makes our heart sing? You know, I've been at restaurants before where sometimes the wait staff might be less than thrilled about being there. Here, yeah. You want water too? Yeah, okay. You know, and then I've seen other people who come alive in serving and assisting and helping others. And my wife and I will lean to each other and say, that's a fish in the water. You know what I mean? What is it that makes you come alive? Is it assisting other people? You might be a realtor and you assist people to find the right house. And you don't do it just as a job. You do it as sacred service to help others. You may be a board member in this church. Maybe you don't have lots of financial experience, but you have experience in expressing your spiritual gift and helping with the administration of this church. You may like working with Yana, working with plants, working with nature. You may have a gift for that. I mean, I've known a couple people, if you give them a plant, it's dead in a week. Others of us have been like plant rescuers. I'll find a plant that's about to die and I'll nurse it back, you know. What is your gift? There are ways for you to express that help our whole beloved community, that touch people's lives. I'm amazed at some of the things that have happened just because of practicing my spiritual gifts, where people's lives are transformed, where people's lives are changed forever, to help bring forth their spiritual gifts. When you express your spiritual gift, it helps to bring forth spiritual gifts in other people because you model it. You tell them it's okay to step up. It's okay to play bigger. It's okay to not play small. Why waste our time? Use the gifts that you have. And here's the thing. When you use your spiritual gifts, they increase, they grow, they develop even more. If you don't use them, they begin to atrophy, just like muscles when they are not used or exercised. We are building the beloved community. We need everyone's participation in gifts, whatever it may be. It may be the gift of hospitality, the gift of making people welcome. It may be the gift of mercy, of loving people that are hurting and spotting people that are hurting and being able to engage with them and help them. Whatever your gift is, it was given to you by God to be used in this spiritual community and in the wider community. This is not the time to play small. Thank you. At this time, we'll have just a short time of meditation to sink into this. Maybe you want to do a little check-in. Like, what are my spiritual gifts? What helps energize me? What is it that I have done that has helped to bring life to the world and has made my heart sing? I invite you to breathe into that. If you wish, you may close your eyes, relax your gaze, whatever is comfortable for you. Breathe into that. Breathe into who you are in God, the gifts that God has given to you. Let's go into a couple of minutes of silence while we check in with Spirit, while we check in with that presence of Jesus, that presence of God as you know God in your spirit as we go into the silence. We give thanks, God, for the gifts you have distributed here, that we create the beloved community, what the Bible calls the body of Christ, the body of that Christ presence, that Christ consciousness, that living out of our God presence in this world. We give thanks. And so it is. Amen.